Meantime, NBC had reported the tech giant planned to demonetize both Zero Hedge and the Federalist over alleged racist commentary in the comment section. But NBC had reported the Federalist to Google itself. Essentially, NBC, a news organization, was ratting out a competitor who had been critical of it in cahoots with a left-wing foreign organization. Google ultimately reviewing the claims and asking the Federalist to take down its comment section, but allowed it to remain on the advertising platform. Joining me now, the publisher of the Federalist, Ben Domenech. Ben, good morning. Do people understand the gravity of what happened, particularly NBC's actions in an election year? You want to talk about election interference, but also the power of Google at this point to essentially, as I believe you have said, deplatform, demonetize, and put out of business any publisher it doesn't agree with.
Well, Dagan, I want to first say it's great to be talking to you again. It's great to be with you. I want to make a slight correction to what you said, which is that the way that NBC reported this initially, they said that this was because of content on our site, namely an article that we ran that was critical of the media generally, but also of NBC. And that's something that they did at the behest of a foreign-based group, a tiny little thing that barely counts as being called a think tank that is designed to go after all types of sites who publish things that they disagree with. What we're really seeing here is the power that small groups have to weaponize these large internet entities against people that they don't like. It's the appeal of radical leftists going after people whose opinions they think don't just, run afoul of their ideas, but shouldn't even see the light of day or have the financial support to continue staying open. And I think that we're only going to see more of that. Google, in this case, I think embarrassed by the whole situation, came up with the spin that it was because of our comment section. That's something that actually undercuts all of their arguments about Section 230, which Attorney General Barr addressed with Maria this weekend in a way that I think clearly sets up a situation where that aspect of our law is going to be reformed.
I'll point out that was Communications Decency Act, that was 2 years before Google was even founded, that they passed that into law. Yeah. If you want to talk about how dated it is. Well, you brought up Maria talking to Attorney General Bill Barr on Sunday Morning Futures about big tech's influence over all platforms of free speech. I want you to listen to this and just react.
Google did select the Federalist, Zero Hedge, and try to cut off their advertising revenue. Senator Tom Cotton also told me that he got a call from someone at Twitter who said, take down your tweet immediately about the police needing the military to back them up. Otherwise, we're deleting your account entirely.
Right. There's something, very disturbing about what's going on. To some extent, there was a bait and switch over the past couple of decades. These companies held themselves out as open to all comers. That's how they built up all their membership and their networks, saying, we have a wide variety of views. People can come in and post their views and their positions and their statements. And that's what led to people to join it and then get the strong market position they have. Then they've switched. Now they're being more selective, and they're starting to censor different viewpoints. But you have this concentration of these very large companies that have that kind of influence on the sharing of information and viewpoints in our society.
Ben, where does this go in terms of the government?
Well, what I think we're seeing right now is a shift in the Overton window in terms of what people are talking about on Capitol Hill, both on the right and the left. I had calls from both Republicans and Democrats on Capitol Hill, congressmen and senators, about this subject because they're deeply concerned about the outsized power of big tech and, frankly, the ability of small, woke leftist mobs to target someone within the building, find someone who can flip a switch, and make arbitrary decisions that can ultimately bankrupt or end entire business platforms that exist and depend on these ad networks. We have never seen companies as powerful as this, and Attorney General Barr is correct when he says that this is kind of a bait and switch, that this was a situation that allowed for the growth of the internet, but now they're acting as if they're still the small, scrappy upstarts, when in reality they hold total dominant power over these ad networks and the ability of companies to survive.
But a lot of people saw this building over a period of years as these companies got bigger and bigger and bigger. And the conservative narrative has always been free market, don't get in the way, government shouldn't pick and choose what companies could be bought by a larger corporation. In fact, I think it was about 3 years ago on the Federalist website, y'all published, it's long, article called "Cool It on the Google Monopoly Talk." Was that part of the problem? Is that the narrative was always that government needs to step back, we're hands off, and now these corporations are dangerously large?
Well, I think that there are two aspects to this. One is, of course, that we want to have companies that behave the right way, that are good actors within the marketplace, that are not trying to crush any kind of competition in ways that are underhanded or using government. On the other hand, that requires them to behave in certain ways that are responsible and not become the tools of these woke leftist mobs. If that kind of thing happens, and keep in mind, this is both right and left who have been criticizing these entities, then inevitably you're going to see a political response. I actually think Google at this point and a lot of these other companies should start to get their minds around the fact that 230 reform, opening up the Communications Decency Act, as you made reference to, might end up being the moderate situation, because otherwise they might end up being viewed as public utilities where people are completely overregulating them. We saw this happen, frankly, with the railroads back in the day, where because of their bad behavior, government stepped in because there was so much consumer outcry. I think at this point, these entities really have to take a hard look at the way that they're behaving and who they're actually listening to when they make such serious decisions.
Have people talked about breaking these companies up? I think Elizabeth Warren has been pretty public about it, but is Google going the way of AT&T?
I don't know about that. I think it's a little too early to say, but I will say that, we're at a point now where it's kind of like, do you want the Elizabeth Warren solution to this or do you want the Josh Hawley solution to this? Because both right and left, when they agree on something in Washington, this, Dagan, that's when companies should start to take notice because that's when things happen.
Ben, are you going to be able to bring back the comment section? How's that going to work?
We absolutely will. We had a completely unregulated comment section before because that's kind of my inclination. We might have to have a situation where people have to use a real name login or something like that in order to pass muster. Mm-hmm. We'll see, but we're going to bring back comments. I'm not actually all that big on comment section myself because I don't think that they're all that productive. But we're not going to be pushed around by some big tech entity telling us what we can and can't do. Of course, now the comment section is essential.
I think everyone should be very, very upset, disturbed, and afraid of what happened to the Federalists, if you're anybody in this country, regardless of where you fall politically, because it is a huge abuse of a great deal of power and manipulation. Ben, it was great to see you. A happy Father's Day. I'm a little late, but, that's on deck for you, Mr. Domenech. Really excited for you. Please come back.
Thank you very much.
All right, take care.
Absolutely.
Bye, Ben Domenech. Coming up, New York City bouncing